There is a mystery in being alive that no statistic can explain out of billions who have walked this earth out of countless possibilities that might never have been. You exist not as an accident, not as a stray number in a sea of probabilities, but as a deliberate thought in the mind of God to call you chosen is not to flatter you but to awaken you, for the choosing is not about privilege alone. It is about purpose. We tend to imagine that greatness must always be loud, visible, and applauded, yet often the divine choosing is quiet, hidden, tucked away in the fabric of ordinary life. The one in a billion purpose given to you may not be written on grand stages or carved into monuments. It may be written instead on the heart of another person whom you loved, forgave, or lifted from despair. The smallest gesture, when flowing from the eternal ways, more than all the noise of the world. But here is the challenge. To be chosen is also to be set apart, and to be set apart is never comfortable. It feels like being out of step with the rhythm. That others dance to it means carrying burdens others do not understand, enduring trials that seem unfair, walking through doors no one else is asked to open. Many shrink from this, wishing they could blend back into the crowd, unnoticed, unremarkable. Yet purpose is not found in the comfort of the crowd. It is found in the courage of obedience. When God calls someone one in a billion, He is not measuring your worth against the rest. He is reminding you that you cannot be replaced. The world may make copies, but heaven makes originals, and every original bears a piece of the Creator's image that no one else can carry in quite the same way. If you silence your voice, that echo will not exist anywhere else in creation. If you bury your gift, that light will not shine in any other window. Think of it this way: the stars in the night sky look countless, and yet each burns with its own fire. No star competes with another, for each fulfills its appointed place in the heavens. So too your life was not given to outshine another, but to shine faithfully where you are. Set purpose is not comparison. It is completion. It is the story that was written for you before the foundations of the world. Do not mistake being chosen for being easy. It is not the absence of struggle, but the presence of meaning. Struggle itself, when endured with faith, becomes the very instrument by which your calling is shaped. The road is narrow not because God withholds, but because He knows that diamonds are not formed in wide, easy spaces. They are born under pressure. You are one in a billion, not because of what you possess, but because of whose you are. To be chosen by God is to be entrusted with a fragment of His eternal plan to carry in your hands, something that will ripple beyond your years. You may not see the full picture now, but eternity will reveal what your obedience has woven into the tapestry of heaven. Being chosen by God means you are not an accident of chance, but a deliberate thought in His eternal design. Being chosen by God means you are not an accident of chance, but a deliberate thought in His eternal design. This truth is one of the most profound realities a person can grasp, because it shatters the illusion of randomness. The world may tell us that we are simply products of biology, accidents of history, or numbers in an endless crowd. But the voice of God cuts through that noise and says, I meant for you to be here. To be chosen means that before the foundations of the earth were laid, your existence was already woven into the Creator's vision. Every breath you take is not borrowed air, but the continuation of a divine plan that saw your life as necessary in the grand unfolding of time. There is a wonder in knowing that your life is not a coincidence. Think for a moment of all the circumstances that had to align for you to be here. The generations before you, the fragile sequence of history, the countless variables of life. By all human reasoning it should have been impossible, and yet here you are, not because of chance, but because you were thought of, spoken of, and called into existence by one who does not make mistakes. This changes everything, because it means you can stop living as though you are expendable, as though you can be replaced, as though your presence on this earth is unnecessary. Being chosen means the world needed you in ways you may not fully see now, but to be chosen also carries with it a weight. It means you must awaken to purpose, because nothing chosen is meant to remain unused. A vessel is shaped for a reason, a lamp is lit to give light, a voice is given to speak. In the same way, your life has been entrusted with meaning, and that meaning is not arbitrary but intentional. There are people who will only be touched by your words, hearts that will only be lifted by your encouragement, lives that will only be changed by your obedience. God's design is so precise that He does not duplicate what He has already created in you. To live unaware of this is to diminish the greatness of what He intended when He formed you. This truth is not meant to inflate your pride, but to awaken your responsibility. When you know you are chosen, you can no longer live passively, the excuse of insignificance loses its power because chosen people cannot claim irrelevance. The hands of the Creator have already marked you with intention. What you do with that intention is what defines whether your life echoes into eternity or fades quietly into missed opportunities, even in moments when you feel overlooked, forgotten, or hidden. Remember that being chosen is not about the applause of the world, but the calling of God. You may stand in a room where no one recognizes your value, but heaven already does. You may feel like one among millions, yet in God's eyes you are singular, irreplaceable, and essential to the story He is telling through time. Purpose is not found in the comfort of the crowd, but in the courage to walk the path God set apart for you. Purpose is not found in the comfort of the crowd, but in the courage to walk the path God set apart for you. The crowd is easy because it gives you the illusion of safety. When you blend in, you don't risk rejection. When you follow the same rhythms as everyone else, you don't have to explain yourself. The noise of the crowd hides your fears, covers your doubts, and lets you disappear into sameness. But purpose does not thrive in sameness. It thrives in obedience, the willingness to step away from what is familiar and into what is unknown. The one who is chosen cannot remain buried in the shadows of imitation. You are called to step out, and that stepping requires courage. The path God sets apart is rarely the one that feels easiest. It often looks narrow, untraveled, and misunderstood. You will find yourself questioning why your journey does not resemble the journey of those around you. You will see others celebrating while you are being refined, others resting while you are wrestling, others being applauded while you are being tested. The temptation will be strong to abandon your road for theirs, to trade the difficulty of your assignment for the comfort of blending in. But what looks comfortable to the eye often conceals emptiness of soul. The narrow road may cost you much, but it births a life that no one else can replicate. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward even when fear whispers in your ear. The courage to follow God's path often means walking into seasons of uncertainty where the only light guiding you is trust. It means letting go of the desire for constant approval, because your purpose will not always make sense to people who do not see what God sees. To pursue purpose is to accept being misunderstood, to endure seasons of loneliness, to choose faith when evidence feels scarce. Yet it is precisely this courage that shapes you, chisels your character, and prepares you to carry the weight of what God has placed within you. There is also a great danger in comfort. Comfort lulls the heart to sleep. It convinces you that survival is enough when you are made for significance. It tells you that safety is better than destiny, that applause is better than authenticity, that conformity is better than calling. But every soul that has ever fulfilled divine purpose has had to make a choice to resist the crowd and embrace the path uniquely theirs. From the outside, this choice often looks foolish. It can appear like walking away from opportunity or turning down what others would consider success. But divine success is never measured by how closely your life mirrors another's. It is measured by how fully you live what God has written for you. The path set apart for you is not random. It was written with your strengths in mind, your weaknesses in mind, even your wounds in mind. Nothing in your story is wasted. Every struggle, every delay, every unanswered question is part of the shaping. And so, while the crowd may offer you ease, only the set-apart path offers you fulfillment, because it is the only road where your true purpose is revealed. The world makes copies, but heaven makes originals. And your voice, gift, and calling cannot be replaced. The world makes copies, but heaven makes originals. And your voice, gift, and calling cannot be replaced. This is one of the most liberating and at the same time most sobering truths a person can embrace. We live in a culture that often values duplication over authenticity, where trends dictate identity and comparison steals the joy of uniqueness. Yet heaven does not create in templates. God never repeats himself. Every soul carries something unrepeatable, something no one else before you or after you will ever embody in quite the same way. You are not a reflection of masses. You are an imprint of the Creator's imagination, a one-time design with eternal significance. The temptation to copy is strong because it feels safer to walk in someone else's footsteps than to risk creating your own. When you see others succeed, it can feel easier to replicate their rhythm, their tone, their method. But what works for another will not work for you. If it is not yours to carry, the oil of another's calling cannot be poured into your jar. What God gave you, he did not give anyone else, and to abandon that gift for imitation is to rob the world of the sound only you can make. Imagine a symphony where every instrument tries to be the violin. The richness is lost, the harmony broken, the design incomplete. In the same way, the world needs your note, your melody, your voice in the grand orchestra of creation. Your gift may not always be celebrated, and the beginning originals rarely are. People are drawn to what they already recognize, so what is new, different, or unfamiliar often goes unnoticed or even resisted. This does not mean your calling is invalid. It means it is distinct. It is the mark of originality to endure seasons where validation feels scarce, yet it is in these very seasons that your authenticity is tested and refined. If you can remain true to your God-given design, when applause is absent, you prove that your identity is rooted, not in approval, but in purpose. To live as an original also means to accept the weight of responsibility. If your voice cannot be replaced, then your silence leaves a gap no one else can fill. If your gift is singular, then neglecting it deprives the world of something it will not find elsewhere. The calling on your life is not just about you. It is about those whose lives depend on the expression of what God placed within you. There are hearts that can only be touched by your words, burdens that can only be lifted by your obedience, and lives that can only be transformed because you chose to be who you were created to be. Consider how stars fill the night sky. Each burns with its own fire, none competing with another, each faithful to its appointed place. Their beauty is not in their sameness, but in their variety. So too with us. Heaven did not make copies, but placed within each of us a distinct brilliance. To deny that brilliance by comparison or fear is to live beneath the reason you were created. Your life is not meant to echo another's. It is meant to sound a note so rare and so true that eternity itself bears witness to it. Struggle is not the denial of being chosen. It is often the very instrument by which your calling is shaped. Struggle is not the denial of being chosen. It is often the very instrument by which your calling is shaped. Too often, we confuse difficulty with rejection, believing that hardship is evidence that we have been forgotten, yet the very opposite is true. To be chosen is to be refined, and refinement never happens in the absence of struggle. The fire that purifies gold is not gentle. The pressure that forms diamonds is not light. And the storms that shape strong trees are not mild in the same way. The path of purpose is carved through trials, and each struggle you face is allowed to strengthen the vessel that must carry the weight of divine calling. Struggle teaches what comfort never can. It strips away illusions, confronts false strength, and exposes the fragility of our self-sufficiency. Without the pressing weight of struggle, we would never learn perseverance, never discover the depth of our faith, never realize the true measure of God's strength within us. The moments when you feel weakest are often the very moments when heaven is crafting resilience into your soul. What feels like breaking is often shaping. What feels like loss is often planting. What feels like delay is often preparation. Every person chosen for great purpose must walk through seasons that test the very fabric of their identity. You will question your worth, doubt your ability, and wrestle with unseen battles. But these struggles are not meant to disqualify you. They are meant to solidify you. Purpose requires a foundation strong enough to endure storms, and that strength is not learned in ease, but in endurance to carry. Influence without depth is dangerous, and God in His wisdom allows struggle to build in you the depth required for the impact He has called you to make. It is easy to envy those whose lives appear effortless, whose journeys seem smooth and uncomplicated, yet what is often unseen is that ease rarely produces endurance. A life without testing may look appealing on the surface, but it lacks the strength to weather the inevitable storms. Struggle, though painful, forges character that cannot be shaken. It creates a weight of authenticity that cannot be faked. Those who emerge from seasons of trial carry with them a depth of compassion, humility, and wisdom that cannot be learned in any other way. Struggle also aligns you with others. Your pain becomes the bridge through which you can reach those who are suffering. The empathy you gain in your darkest moments becomes the very tool by which you lift others into hope. Without scars, you could not understand the wounded. Without battles, you could not guide the weary. Without tears, you could not comfort the broken-hearted. Struggle equips you not only for your own calling, but for the lives you are meant to touch. To be chosen is to be entrusted with purpose, and that purpose is too precious to be carried untested. Struggle does not diminish the reality of your calling. It affirms it. It shapes you into someone who can withstand the weight of glory, who can walk faithfully in assignment, and who can shine with a strength that was forged only in fire. You are one in a billion, not because of what you have, but because of whose you are. You are one in a billion, not because of what you have, but because of whose you are. Value is often measured by possessions, status, or achievements, but none of these are what define the worth of a life chosen by God. True identity does not come from wealth or influence, from titles or recognition. It comes from belonging to the one who called you into existence. To belong to Him is to carry a significance that cannot be diminished by loss, failure, or rejection. Your worth is anchored not in what is temporary, but in what is eternal, and no circumstance in this world can erase that truth. When you measure yourself by what you have, you will always find someone who has more. When you measure yourself by accomplishments, there will always be someone who seems further ahead. When you measure yourself by appearance or skill, there will always be someone who seems more admired. Comparison drains the soul because it fixes your gaze on shifting standards, but belonging to God fixes your identity on an unchanging foundation. You are not one in a billion because you stand out by earthly standards. You are one in a billion because heaven itself has placed its mark upon you. This reality transforms the way you see yourself. Instead of living in constant striving to prove your worth, you begin to live in the freedom of already being chosen. The gifts you carry are not attempts to earn value, but expressions of value already given. The talents within you are not accidents. They are entrusted to you as tools to live out the purpose God has written for you. Even your limitations are not oversights, but part of the design shaping you to depend on Him and to complement the greater body of His work in the world. Being one in a billion because of whose you are also reshapes the way you face challenges. If your identity rested in possessions, then loss would destroy you. If it rested in achievements, then failure would define you. But because it rests in God, trials cannot erase your worth. Storms may shake you, but they cannot unmark you. The voice of doubt may whisper that you are insignificant, but the voice of the one who called you speaks louder, declaring that you are chosen, beloved, and purposeful. This truth also frees you from the endless cycle of performance. You do not need to exhaust yourself proving you belong. When you already do, you do not need to grasp for recognition when you are already seen. You do not need to fear obscurity. When the God who formed galaxies knows your name, the assurance of being His allows you to walk through life with quiet confidence, not arrogance, because your confidence rests not in self but in the one who holds you. You are one in a billion because your life is not ordinary to Him. Every detail of your story is known, every step ordered, every moment woven into His eternal plan. What you carry is not measured by quantity, but by divine ownership. The greatest treasure of your existence is not what you gather, but whose hands you rest in, and it is that belonging that makes you irreplaceable.